I want to share with you one of the ways that I provide feedback to my students in response to their writing that has been really well received. To provide video feedback, I use a program called Screencastomatic. It's a free program that is pretty intuitive to use, and so I'll walk you through the steps here. So once you're on their site, you want to click where it says Start Recording for Free. There are upgraded options that you can look into later, but for now, this is more than sufficient. You're going to click where it says Launch Free Recorder. And then what should happen, it may ask you for permission to record you through your mic or whatever it is the first time. And so give permission the same way that you did when you started using Zoom. And then once all of that is squared away, this is what will happen when you click on it. And so what you want to do now is pull up the assignments. So this is a rhetorical analysis essay that I just got in for one of my summer classes. And so what I normally do, and you don't have to do it this way, is I usually have it open in Word. And so I will read it. It's a little bit, okay. I will read through the paper before I start recording, and I won't make a lot of marks. I won't make a lot of comments inside the paper, but what I will do is I will highlight. I will highlight sections that I want to talk about. So for example, I may highlight this just so that I can talk about proper formatting of titles in MLA. I will go through if there's a topic sentence that I think needs work, if there is a way that something was cited that I think is questionable. So I'll just go through and highlight sections, sentences. So I'll highlight this because I want to talk about proper formatting for Works Cited page. And so once it's ready to go, usually the way that it will look is that it will look like there are sections that are highlighted. There are some times where I will type in something like this as a reminder to myself. And so that I'm ready for this quote unquote conversation that I'm about to have. Once the paper is ready to go, I will click record and it will give me a countdown. And then as soon as it says go is when it is starting to record the things that I'm saying. So just like the way that you give feedback when you provide written feedback in Blackboard, track changes, comments, or however else it is that you do it, I begin with hi. These are the things that I really liked about your topic, your paper, your writing, something. So you start the discussion as if you were face to face and you kind of give a general idea of what it is that you found as you were reading. And then you can go through and show the student what it is that you're looking at. Show the student what it is that you are commenting on and talk over it. And one of the greatest benefits of this is that while I'm saying, oh, your works cited page is not formatted correctly, especially in the beginning of the semester, I can show them how to do it. So I can take it, I can work on showing the steps of how to do a hanging indent correctly, step by step, so that they can watch me do the thing that I want them to do. And once I've discussed the parts of the paper that warranted discussion, I don't have to worry about some of the concerns that happen with conferences. Is that as much as they understand what it is that you're saying when you're having the conversation and nod and want to do their best to make the revisions that you talk about, a lot of times I think students walk out and forget a lot of what was discussed. And so this way it is there for review whenever they want to look at it again, whenever they want to think about it again. And it's been something that students have responded really, really positively in response to. They appreciate it more. They seem to think that this requires more of me. They mention it. They will, say thanks for the feedback. I appreciate it. It was really good. or they'll talk about how different it was than the way that they received feedback in the past. At least a handful of students will mention it in the end of year course evaluations in a really positive light. And so it's been really, really good. So once you finish the comments that you want to make, once you've had the discussion that you want to have, so for here, I would have highlighted and just, talked about, I'm going to make a point of it here, but remember to look through the rest of your paper and make sure that the parenthetical citations are done correctly. So the recordings generally, it ranges from anywhere from 5 minutes to like 13 minutes. Something like that, depending on what it is that we want to talk about. I find that I am more descriptive, more detailed than if I were to have had to type out all of the comments in response to an issue or an idea. Diminishing penmanship is not a concern. I think sometimes students get really overwhelmed by the quantity of marks. To the point where they hesitate to actually really dive in and read all the comments. And since what everyone receives is the same, they all get a link to just me talking. None of it feels any worse or better. I think there's a part of it that makes it feel like there's less judgment this way. So once I'm finished, I'm going to click here, and that stops the recording. And then you click where it says done, and then you're going to click where it says save, upload, and it's going to give you some options, and I'll show you what I do. What I do is I upload to YouTube. And so once I click that, this is what shows up. And I will give it some kind of title, usually the feedback for first name and like the first letter of the last name. And usually I try to black out the name of the student on the paper on the Word doc before I start making the recording. I'm sure you noticed. And it's not a public link, but I do what I feel like I can do to make sure that their privacy is protected as much as possible. I make sure that it is unlisted. And what that means is that only the person with the specific link can have access to that recording. And once I make all those adjustments, I click publish, and it's going to start uploading it to YouTube. Once it does that, once it's finished, it's going to give me a link, a URL that I can copy. And then what I do is I paste it into the feedback box. So I'll put the grade in here, and then I'll put the link here, and I'll let them all know where they can find the link to their feedback. Once all of that gets uploaded, this is where it ends up. So this is my list of videos I think this is all from last semester, spring semester. And so you can tell here that some of them, look at it 4 times, 8 times. Some of them look at it once, twice. It just depends. If I notice that there hasn't been any views, I will usually reach out. I try if things aren't too crazy. And so once that happens, I can kind of keep track of what's going on and who are the students who are engaging with the feedback, who are the students who don't seem to realize that it's there. Another thing that I have used this for is to make short little videos for issues that come up again and again. So signal phrases, I'll, take a sample and show them together, and then you'll see that here there were 51 views of that little clip. There was one that I made, there were like 3 that I made all at once. And so this is about hanging indent. And so especially in our remote classrooms where they're not sitting in class watching our whiteboards, I think this is a really good way of walking them step by step on what they'll see on their screens and the steps that they need to take so that they feel like they know what they're doing. And so these videos, like 40, 50 views, I think are pretty good. And I'll let them know either via text or email or during lecture during our Zoom sessions when these things are available. And so that's pretty much it. I can keep a stash of it here. I usually clear it out once the semester is over. And, students are welcome to ask for a conference after they get this feedback. But I found that I have much better luck in seeing the feedback that I talk about actually reflected in the next version of the paper when done this way. Feedback doesn't seem to get lost as much, and it does feel like students feel better supported. And so this has been something that I use not for every assignment, usually for the bigger ones, for the ones where more substantive, detailed, extensive feedback would be better for them and also more productive for me, so that by the time that I see their final versions of anything, it's actually different. It's changed and been reworked. And so if you have any questions about how to use Screencastomatic, I would be happy to answer the questions, but I hope that this was helpful. So that's where that part ends. The one little tag on that I will say is that this all began as an effort that I took on to provide feedback that wasn't written, but I did audio recordings. And so this is what I used before I used Screencastomatic. And so if you don't necessarily want to have all this set up where you're looking at the paper together, but you're on the go, or you just want to just not type, but kind of say a whole bunch of things about the writing that you've reviewed, this is another option. There are lots of different ways that you can make voice memos, which is essentially what this is. But the thing that I like about this is ease of use, and in the same way that I can share the link very easily, the way that I can when I was doing YouTube, but also, let me see if I log in properly. I think I have this membership on pause right now. The thing that I liked about this was that I could also see whether it was, how many times it was listened to. So I could tell whether a student listened to it once, whether a student listened to it 4 times, whereas if you just send a file of a voice memo, there's, other than just confirming that they received it, I don't think there's any way of seeing whether they reviewed it and how many times. So that's information that I like to have, but this is just another option. And so I am finding that students generally seem to like getting feedback that feels more interactive, although it's not, that feels more less overwhelming, or seems to communicate like less pressure. Whatever the reasons, students have responded really, really positively. I have seen really good results in the final papers that they've turned in, and it's made it feel like the work that I put in to provide feedback has been a lot more fruitful. And so if you have any questions about either of these things, please feel free to send me a note, and I'd be happy to talk over the summer.